Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Rob Roseman.
Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas, and we would like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
So in this episode, we have Rob Roseman, and he is a former professional poker player. He's also a podcaster, an author, and a dad. Thank you so much for being with us today, Rob.
Thank you for having me, Lorianne and Roy. Excited to be here.
So Rob, tell us about your book.
Right after it. So I appreciate that, Roy. I'm a dad to 3 kids, 8, 6, and 3. And when I left the professional poker world, I moved to the Atlanta area. Didn't know what I was going to do with myself, and I decided to start a podcast. So I ended up interviewing my friends and neighbors just about being a dad. Ended up getting some bigger guests like Jesse Itzler and Pat Flynn, and decided I was getting so much good, great advice about being a parent. I thought, my favorite thing about a podcast is like you always get, you get 1 or 2 good quotes or good nuggets from a 30 or 60-minute episode. I said, what if I could take those and put in a book and be able to share it with other dads and my kids one day? And I learned how to self-publish a book. It's apparently easier than ever today. And now I've got something live on Amazon. So it's a pretty neat piece of legacy to have.
What's the name of your podcast? Sorry.
Oh, it's called Dad the Best I Can. And I just kind of interview entrepreneurs, comedians, athletes, just people that are dads, and kind of hear about their lives and get some. It's like therapy for me too. I get to learn and share my experiences.
Well, I think interviewing Pat Flynn was pretty awesome.
Oh, he's such a pro. It's he's kind of the one that got me started. He said, you commit to, I'm sure we've all heard the same advice, you commit to 3 episodes, put it out there, and just run with it. And yeah, he really helped inspire me. And it's such a cool, you guys are doing it. It's such a fun thing. It's a great way to connect with people, and it's easier than ever.
Yeah, because, we actually stumbled into it, to be honest with you. We were in a Facebook group together, and I did a 5-part series on podcasting. I just researched it because it was interesting to me. And, and then Lorianne said, oh man, I've always wanted to do that. So she did a little research on her end, and she goes, let's start a podcast. Yeah, okay, sure.
That's the way to do it. Just start before you're ready and take action. And if you can find somebody that can help you, that's another. I always wish I had somebody to kind of fuel the fire. So that's great that you guys that's what I always tell people. Just start it, accept you're not going to know what you're doing, and go with it.
And keep going. That's one thing I found out, because of course Podfest has been a lot of fun, but they were listening to some people. They said that 80% of the podcasts stop after 10 episodes. And I was amazed at that number. And I think people look too much at the numbers and the listeners. And, Roy and I do this because we love it. We love to listen to people like you telling us your story. So
that's refreshing to hear, because you do have that pod fade, they call it, or pod burn. And it's so true, because if you can't do it for the numbers, can't do it for the money. You're not going to be Joe Rogan. You've got to do it because you enjoy it, and because you're going to meet interesting people that you never would be able to.
Yeah, I can remember we said, oh, we got 1 download. Whoopee, we did it. It was a milestone, because we were just not knowing what we were doing. We just went out there, and I think we interviewed each other basically.
Yeah.
And that was it. So I guess it works. Somebody downloaded it, and so we went from there.
It's neat, because there's always, even if there's only one person that listens, if you can, change their life or empower them to do something that they wouldn't have, how else would you be able to have that effect on somebody? So I think it's the coolest medium. I wish I had these when I was in high school, college. I think I would have really been somebody if I could have heard and learned from all these people.
I agree too. And the other thing too, I always wanted to be a radio announcer since I was a kid. And I'm like, well, I get to do this, and I don't have to go for an interview somewhere. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I'm curious about this. You're a former professional poker player. What got you into that?
Yeah, it's I always played high school games, college games with my buddies, like a lot of people do, and I was a trader in Chicago. Actually, I worked on the floor, so I was always kind of in a fast-paced, high-stress, volatile world. And once I was kind of burning out on that career, which I had a great run, I qualified for the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas, the ESPN, the big when this was when
Mhm.
poker was really booming too in the mid 2000s. I flew out there. I had some incredible run that I look back, I don't even think I knew what I was doing, and had a big score. And I was turning 30 years old actually that next year, and thought, you know what, maybe when else in my life could I, give a shot at trying to become a professional poker player? So I moved out there on a whim and ended up, doing pretty well, and ended up meeting my then wife there. We had 3 kids. I stayed 11 years in Vegas playing every year, and it really was. It's a really good, bucket list kind of thing to do, and you learn so much about people, about yourself, and I mean, it does chew up and spit out a lot of people. They say it's a really hard way to make an easy living is being a professional poker player, and that couldn't be more true.
Yeah. So you were a celebrity.
Something maybe like Forrest Gump. I think that could be. I had a couple TV appearances, and I got to butt heads with some big time pros and some celebrities. So it's fun. I'd go out to LA and I'd be able to play poker with some of the Hollywood, actors and things. So it's a really fun. I mean, it was a job. It could be a grind sometimes, but I've got some fun stories, and it's a pretty fun chapter of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not a 9 to 5 job, and it's not a couple hours at a whack. It's like 24 hours, continuous, or whatever, right?
It could be. I mean, that's the one thing. Vegas and these casinos, they are open 24/7. So when I was starting, I would usually go in at, 7, 8 o'clock at night and stay till 4 in the morning and play. Eventually, once I started having kids, I actually did turn it almost into like a 9 to 5, where you've got, a different crowd that you're playing with. But yeah, it's kind of up to you to make your own path with that. And it's a lot of learning about yourself, really dealing with a lot of failure, having to pick yourself back up, having to manage money and take chances. So it's a really interesting kind of microcosm of life in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So it's kind of where you got your start into being an entrepreneur, right?
Oh yeah, I think all these skills translate to parenting, to being an entrepreneur. Like, just you're gonna have to put yourself out there a lot. You're gonna have to fail constantly. I mean, I made money 11 straight years playing professional poker, but when I would go to the casino, when I would come home that night, I'd say 40% of the time I was a loser. I'd lost money. So that's like a lot of failing. And it can be demoralizing. You can go a week or even months sometimes of dealing with that. And that's a similar thing with being an entrepreneur, or, even starting a podcast or doing anything, is you're going to have to deal with plenty of mistakes, and you got to really power through them.
So yeah, so it's a big. Your mindset was key to being able to keep moving, right?
You had to, I say, sleep is a good thing. Go to sleep, and the next day you're going to wake up and things are going to be, the world's going to go on. So you really do have to reset. And even as a parent, I can be at my wit's end at bedtime. And I know just when I wake up, it'll probably be a little too early, but the day is going to start anew, and I have to have a fresh outlook.
Yeah.
So how do your children take it for you being able to call their bluff?
It's funny you say that, Lorianne. I can look at my kid and I'd be like, "Did you buy that video game?" And he won't look at me, and I say, you're bluffing." He's like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "Well, that's like kind of like lying, but you're trying to hide the truth." And I can't always tell. They're pretty good. They would make some good card players, actually.
I know your tale.
Yeah, right. If you
Right?
can't look me in the eye, that's a good sign. But sometimes they'll pull one over me, so you do have to watch out.
Yeah. So are your kids? You said they're what age were they again?
I've got 3 8-year-old boy, 6-year-old boy, 3-year-old girl. So I am right up in the middle of it right now.
Yeah. So are you the primary on
So
your
well, it's as an interesting development. I used 2020 to get the cliche 2020 divorce. So I'm now a single dad. I'm a 50-50 co-parent with my ex-wife, their mom. We have a good relationship. So half the week the kids are with me, half the week they're with their mom. So it's been a adjustment, but it's another great, really learning experience, and you have to learn to check your ego all the time and just be able to work with other people. So it's been interesting, but the kids are really adjusting great. And it's, a good way for me to show them dealing with adversity as well.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing you and your ex are civil and friendly and, looking after your kids the best way you can. So that's great, because that doesn't happen to all the divorces.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's nobody teaches you this stuff. Nobody teaches you how to be a parent, how to really be in a relationship. Certainly nobody teaches you about divorce, and there's so many emotions that can come with it. So it really is been a process, a learning experience. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this app called Clubhouse. It's a new audio app that's all the rage right now, and there's a lot of divorce rooms in there. Rooms, they're called, little clubs where you can have therapists on there and other people sharing their stories. And I've been, for the last month, completely addicted to this thing. It's like free therapy, and you're learning, and other people are going through things. So I think finding other people that have been in your situation, which can be hard to do when you're just starting out, has been really important for me. And I hopefully can be an advocate for other men and women getting divorced, that you're not alone, and it's going to be hard, but there's other people out there going through what you are.
It is a difficult process, because I know with me, I would probably say it was 3 years before I felt comfortable, probably 10 years before I felt like I had overcome it. And it's really, I would say, probably 2 years since I'm completely like, hey, I'm living in the present, not the past, and move forward. It was more difficult for me with my children, because we did not have a very pleasant divorce. And that's the other thing too, lucky for you, because one of the things parents have to deal with too is the guilt. And also later on, sometimes it doesn't show right away. Sometimes it shows up when they're in their adult age, that the children start to lash out, and they're starting to show the remnants of what happened when they were in their 9, 10 kind of state. So
I'm sure
that's
my
really
therapy
nice.
bills.
I didn't have Clubhouse. I just
Hey, I didn't even know about it. I mean, I think that's the cool thing. Even with podcasts, I actually found a divorce coach, listened to her on a podcast. I wasn't even using her as a coach, but just like being able to access all this information. And I think audio, especially, the fact that I can go for a drive and listen to somebody, tell a story or something, that you get one little thing that clicks in your head, and that was only a 30-minute investment for you. You can't beat it.
That's a good point.
Well, back when I was getting married, it was like forever, death do us part, all that. Okay. But now then, what I've seen is a lot of people don't think you need to be married. Number one, there's like that's well, we don't have to get married. We can, whatever. And then I've heard those people say, well, if it doesn't work out, we can get a divorce. And it's kind of like, well, these shoes they're not comfortable. I'll just buy another pair of shoes.
Very true.
Really, it's really a big shift, in the last 50 years.
And nobody goes in with those intentions either. So it's like, we know intellectually something, but right, I totally agree with you. And it's, I think, confusing for everybody, no matter how smart you are, no matter how, experienced you are. I think relationships can be complicated. And once you add kids and all these things to the mix, and how you navigate them, you're kind of on your own with your partner to how you figure it out.
Yeah,
it's true too, because they don't, that's the one thing they don't teach you is the overwhelm of the children, because you tend to, like, I think that's the hardest part. I used to teach, I believe it or not, my ex-husband, I used to do family and business, because we worked together in business. And we're not the best ones now to talk about that. But it was interesting to put the togetherness. So like the first 3 years being in business and in a partnership and marriage are very crucial. And then you hit the 10-year, where there's sort of that block, which is quite often you look at the divorces happen either 3, 10, And then there's the 25, which is the, empty nester, where you have to look at each other and go, wow, we were so buried in the kids and everything. And again, with the business, it would be, succession planning and selling or building. So there's very much a correlation between business and relationships, if you really look at it, which is interesting.
Well, it's
That is
interesting you
interesting.
mentioned the 25-year thing, because when my wife's parents, they were real active in the kids, that it was all about the kids, right? So my sister-in-law, who was a year older than my wife, when she went off to college, and then my wife got married, and then her brother went off to college, and they were just for like 6 months, they were just sitting around like, what do we do? They were really, seriously, they were literally lost. It took them about 6 months to adjust. And so seeing that, when we decided we had kids, we were going to keep our relationship alive too. We spent a lot of time with the kids, but we still maintained our relationship. So once they got grown and moved away, our relationship was new. It wasn't new. It was just the same one we've always had. We just had to reinvent it, So, that's very important, I think.
You still knew each other.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like that. Who's a stranger?
And for dad, speaking of dads particularly, I know here in Texas, over the last 15 years probably, or maybe longer, there's been more push for divorced dads to have more say. And it was always about the mother, and now then that's changed. You're starting to see more dads are able to get their kids. They dictate, they have more options of visitation and stuff than it used to be. So, are you seeing that from your?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm 50, which I guess I learned is not the norm. I hear a lot of people that say, oh, it's the weekend visit or something. And sometimes when my head is spinning, I was like, how did I sign up for this? Or how did I get this deal? But I think dads today are more involved than ever. And I think that's a great thing, but it is a big adjustment I really do empathize with any divorced people, but especially divorced dads. It's like, you think you've got everything figured out, and all of a sudden you've got, young kids just with you, and you've got to do the best you can, but there is no training manual.
Yeah. Are you involved with any other like a divorced dads group or anything like that?
I've tried a little bit, but speaking about that Clubhouse has really been a game changer for me, because it is like a little community of people. But I think another thing I've learned is that I think women in general are better at forming, especially as they get older, forming friendships, having that bond. And I've been reading a lot, and actually heard an incredible podcast about how detrimental that can be for men, especially as they get into their 40s, 50s, and beyond, divorced or not, losing that friendship, that sense of community. And it really can attribute to a lot of, even your earlier mortality, things like that. So it's something that I'm kind of feeling right now. And I know how important it is to, find friends and really maintain and not really isolate yourself, which I think a lot of men do, and is not the healthiest thing for you.
Yeah.
Have you found your mutual friends you had when you were married? Is there a split between those after you get a divorce? For you personally, have you found that?
It's a good question. We moved to Atlanta only 3 years ago, so we're relatively new. And I think when I moved out of the house to a new neighborhood, I kind of said, the neighbors we haven't had a huge split like that, but it does come to mind sometimes where I'll be like, that guy, did he pick team her, like, what's this, we're done or something. So it's interesting. It gets in your head because at least in the very beginning, it is tricky to, even if you get along, it's awkward. It can be uncomfortable. And when I was a married that's the thing. Before you have kids, you really have no idea what it's like to be a parent. You can't. And I think in a lot of the same ways, married to divorce, there's like this this gap that you just can't really understand. So it's either, oh, you must be out there having so much fun, you're going on dates, you get your alone time, or it's, oh, how are you doing? And are you okay? Are you going to get over it? And really and Lorianna, you're vacillating between the two. And in some ways you kind of resent the people that are projecting this lifestyle on you as you're trying to figure out. So it's like getting your sea legs and really finding. So I think it is important, and I'm really going to make a point, especially with the summer coming up, of finding other people in the divorce world to connect with because of that relatability.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as it doesn't become the focus, though, that's the one thing I found. Because when I first divorced, if I was hanging around other people who were newly divorced, it became the whole focus of the conversation, everything. And you stop realizing it's just bringing you to the pain so you have to find activities and more positive things to talk about as well. Because if it just does, if it consumes you. I mean, I dated a guy who was going through divorce at the same time as, I was divorced, but I was still going through the settlement, which was just a mess. And, that was our one thing that we had in common mostly. And so then, we decided, I said, no, let's get out. Let's get the kids out. Let's go to, Canada's Wonderland. Let's do something else and sit here and just, wallow in our, not necessarily self-pity, but kind of whatever. So that's something that people have to watch when they're, particularly at the beginning of the divorce, is not getting so consumed with other divorced people and that being a central, thing.
It's a great point, because I think, what I've learned is, especially you have kids, you have limited bandwidth. And while there are times where I can be a little down about things, I want to be around positive people. I don't want to hear, everybody can complain about, something. So I think I'm also learning to spot that earlier and then say, maybe you're not the best friend or date or person to be in my life, because I don't need that. I don't have the bandwidth for that kind of energy. So I interviewed a guy, actually a really great interview. His name is Dr. Robert Glover, and he wrote this book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And it really talked about, a lot of it was like men's issues with, not be a jerk. I think a lot of people misconstrue it, but being willing to express themselves without, feeling embarrassed about it. And one thing he said that really stuck out to me was, he thinks that being a good ender is the number one success skill in life, whether that's business or relationships or friendships. That if you're finding that somebody's not, gelling with you, say, you know what, you're not a bad person. I just don't think we're a great fit, or in business. And it's very hard for us to do because we have empathy and we feel bad about it. We don't know the words. And he says, even he's terrible at it, but he says it's like a muscle that you have to get better at. And that's one piece of advice I'm kind of embracing now, being divorced, is like, if I see that, the writing's on the wall, instead of investing my time in this, try to just say, you know what, no hard feelings, but I think we should go our separate ways.
Yeah, because that could be an energy drainer. I mean, if you're sitting there and there's somebody and you are empathetic and you want to listen, but at the end of it, you're depressed, you're exhausted.
Right.
And so it's not to want to turn your face around. You got to take care of you too. Like, that's so important for the children, for yourself and everything. Yeah. Tough thing. I love that. I was just going to think, it's kind of like if you're going out for dinner with somebody and they look at the food you've ordered and they start crying because, their ex had that too. So it's like, it's just.
Yeah. That would probably be a sign that maybe you need some time to heal, and call me in a couple of years. Yeah.
I worked with a guy and he was going through it, and at work, he would, every time he goes to somebody's office, he'd start talking about his divorce and his ex. And everybody understood it. They tried to, but then it's just like continuously day after day at lunch. He'd come in the morning and, it just, everybody felt bad for him, but it's like, okay, move on. We've heard all this about 50 times, but he couldn't deal with it. And finally, the owner of the company said, you need to go get some counseling.
Absolutely.
Don't come back. He said, don't come back until you get past this.
Yeah.
It's great advice.
You're killing the office. The people in the office, they're just, so And I mean, we all felt bad for him.
Yeah.
You know, but we just got tired of hearing it.
Yeah, you do have, no matter what the other person did or didn't do, you have to take responsibility for yourself and your happiness. And that's easier said than done. And a lot of times that most likely will require the help of a professional. And yeah, I haven't heard one person, go to therapy and say, oh, that was a complete waste of time. So I think it's really important for anybody to take a look at themselves and their ego and say, all right, I've got to fix some of this stuff. Because again, I don't think we're taught how to do a lot of this. In a lot of ways, this is from our parents and we're wired, so we shouldn't feel bad, but we have to recognize where our weak spots.
Yeah, most definitely. And you mentioned somebody's plate, and they start crying. I worked with a girl, it wasn't a divorce, but her husband had passed away. And so she went wild and she thought, well, so she started trying to date again. And she found this guy, they were getting along real well, and she was kind of, thinking, well, she was happy. They would go to dinner, they would talk, But then she came in one day and said, this guy just told her, they need to part ways, and she couldn't figure it out. And he finally told her, well, every time we bring up something, you always talk about, well, Jerry this or Jerry that. That was her ex-husband. He said, till you get over him, there's nothing for us. There's no future for us,
Yeah,
And
it's not fair to anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I get it,
Yeah, I mean, it's good for people to hear because we're all guilty of it. And I think when you hear it, you're like, wait, am I like that? Maybe I do have to, change the way I talk about things.
Yeah.
I was like that.
Yeah.
I was. At the beginning, they go, when are you going to stop talking about him? I'm going, well, when I heal.
Well, what's hard, Lorianne, and I'm sure you can agree with this, and this is the difference between a married people and when you're divorced, is you're going to get better, you're going to meet somebody, you're going to move on, but also right now it's going to suck. You have to sit in this. So,
Yep.
And then at the same time, we're all being told to live in the moment. And I'm just like, well, which is it? It's going to be better then, or I should feel my feelings now. So it's very confusing, but
my moment sucks right now.
yeah, exactly. Which is okay. I think that's another thing I'm learning is like being okay, sitting in that for a little. I think I'll read books all the time that they say resisting that and like suppressing it is what makes it even worse. So if you're going to be, miserable, take a night, be miserable, and then you'll actually feel better the next day.
And you still have to remember too, it's not like, I was 15 years married. The first sign was after 10 though, by the way, but we stuck it out with 5 with counseling.
10
Probably
10
whatever.
days or 10 years?
We're after 10 years. Yeah, 10 days.
Okay.
Probably 10 days too, by the way. The word is like, I'm kidding. Sorry,
Yeah.
Pete. But anyway.
There's always those signs early that you see.
There are the signs there that we ignore, right. But long and short of it is, but you have those years. You've got the children, you've got the years. It's not something that just goes away. And then the worst thing is looking at pictures. I couldn't look at pictures for about 2 years, 3 years maybe. And then when I finally took them out, could look at them without crying, then I realized, okay, you're getting better, Maria. But those are the things you've got, that history that it's, and that's what you have to understand. It's not like you've only been married 6 months in and out with no kids. Yeah. This is a lot bigger. But
yeah, even if you're the one that wanted it, or you're the one or somebody cheated, it's like all these things are irrelevant. It is a grieving process. Yes. And I think what you said about the pictures rings true today with all the social media. I've heard, and actually my ex and I have done this. She came to me with it, where we'll kind of unfollow each other, mute their stories and their pictures. And it's good because those triggers, we're not used to just, years ago, somebody wasn't handing you a picture of your ex-husband and saying, hey, look at him, having a great day with the kids. And that would send you, and now today you look at your phone and all of a sudden so I'm constantly blown away by how much the technology, while it's incredible, it's like exposing us to things that we're probably not necessarily wired to handle.
Yeah, and just then, and a little bit of advice too for people out there, regardless if you're male or female, don't creep your ex because it's just going to bring those back too.
Yeah.
Just let them be. So,
yeah.
Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for being on our show. We just, great topic. I
Thank
think
you.
really a
I
lot of
mean,
people need to talk.
this divorce has really given me a lot of great content, so I'm excited to go on more shows and therapy also to hear from people. It is fun to help because I know how for me how hearing other people tell their story is really helpful. So I get pleasure and satisfaction out of that. To anybody going through it, I feel you, and it will get better, but it also might suck in the meantime. So. And like Roy said, don't go talk to somebody and don't make your whole office miserable in the meantime.
Yeah, really. So how can our listeners reach out to you, Rob?
Well, I am not a big social media user, but I am Dad the Best I Can on Instagram. Main thing I'm trying to send people to is on Amazon. You can just type in Dad the Best I Can and my book will pop up. It's 52 tips from other dads. Really short, easy read to skim through. It's a great gift for dads. So it's gotten 5-star reviews. It's really been a fun project that I put together, and I get a lot of great feedback on it. So yeah, anybody married to a dad, that is a dad, or knows a dad, highly recommend the book, and I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure having you and a pleasure meeting you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the serendipity of podcasts, I say. I mean, when else would we ever meet? It's incredible. And 48 hours later, we're talking, and I've got a great story now.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Rob.
All
Thanks
right.
a lot for being with us.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.